A blockade by farmers of the region's biggest milk processor has paid dividends today. The Co-op group says it's increasing the premium it pays on milk to farmers within its group to 29 pence per litre, and that will include Robert Wiseman dairies.
Last night, hundreds of farmers descended on its plant in Bridgewater to disrupt supplies in protest at the firm's recent price cuts. It's reduced what it pays farmers by almost 4 pence per litre in the last 3 months, blaming global markets. Jeff Welsh reports.
How much is a fair price for a pint of milk? It may seem a relatively straightforward question, but if these scenes at the Robert Wiseman processing plant near Bridgewater are anything to go by, it will take a brave person to come up with an answer that will suit everyone. Last year, dairy farmers received just under 29 pence for every litre they sold. Next month, this is set to fall to less than 25 pence. Since it costs about 30 pence to produce a litre of milk, these farmers feel the situation is no longer sustainable.
Well, I'm a dairy farmer. I milk nearly 400 cows. 4p a litre is going to be 160,000 a year to me. Big lot of money to come off a bottom line that isn't already there.
The protesters are aware that winning over public opinion could play a key role in the outcome of this debate.
Well, I don't think they get paid nearly enough for their milk, you know. We would be happy to pay a little more for it.
Around 450 farmers and 100 tractors blockaded the Robert Wiseman plant at Bridgewater and the nearby Morrison's supermarket distribution centre.
There's 450, 500 people turned up here tonight, you know, trying to produce a top quality product produced under the highest welfare standards to make sure our customers, the consumer, has fresh milk every day of the week.
The blockade started around 8 o'clock, and at one stage it looked as if it would run throughout the night, but a breakthrough eventually arrived. Well, it's now coming up to just past 12:30, and the farmers are having a meeting, but it looks like this protest is finally going to come to an end. Robert Wiseman says it can't afford to increase the price it pays to farmers and has to reflect the substantially lower returns from the markets which they serve. The company declined an interview but said it understood the level of feeling amongst dairy farmers. But the problem goes way beyond Robert Wiseman. The world price of butterfat, which is used for products like ice cream, cheese and butter, collapsed from a high of 10 pence a litre last year to 5 pence in March this year. That's because of increased production around the world. They say their margins are so squeezed now they have to pass on some of the pain to farmers. Bridgewater MP Ian Liddell-Granger believes the time has now come for government intervention.
And here we are talking about legislating on alcohol, legislating on all sorts of other things to do with food. Why on earth can't we do it for a strategic resource like milk?
Farmers are now promising more blockades. Their frustration with the processors is understandable, but getting a solution may prove a bigger challenge. Jeff Welsh in Bridgewater for the West Country Tonight.
You are watching ITV1 here in the southwest. A reminder of our main headline tonight, and a blockade by farmers of the region's biggest milk processor has paid dividends today. The Co-op group says it'll pay its farmers 29 pence per litre. That'll include Robert Wiseman dairies. Last night, hundreds of farmers descended on its plant in Bridgewater to disrupt supplies in protest at the firm's recent price cuts.
Well, the West Country-based chef Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall has added his voice to the campaign by dairy farmers. Here's what he told us from his River Cottage headquarters near Axminster.
I'm speaking up because I've been asked to by local dairy farmers. You know, a lot of my neighbours are dairy farmers, and one of the problems is they can't take industrial action. You know, they have herds to look after, to be milked twice a day. They don't have the luxury of cutting off the supply. There are strong welfare reasons why that's just not an option for them. So they're appealing to the public, who almost all of whom consume milk every single day, and I think that's exactly the right thing to do. And if the public feel as strongly about this as I do, they should think about getting their milk from supermarkets that pay a fair price or from other sources that pay a fair price. And the dairy farmers have particularly highlighted half a dozen supermarkets who are really using very, very punitive contracts to push them into the ground. And they've been named. You know, it's Asda, Morrison's, Aldi, Lidl and Iceland. And others too, they're now asking questions of big players like Costa and Starbucks, who obviously use a hell of a lot of milk. They also have some responsibility for making sure that farmers are getting a fair price.
Strong words there. Well, I'm joined now by Paul Ward, who's a dairy industry expert from Duchy College in Cornwall. Mr. Ward, you heard what Hugh Fernley-Whittingstall had to say there. He's clearly aiming his fire at the supermarkets. In your opinion, are they the bad boys here?
What we have is most people now buy reduced fat milk from supermarkets. The milk processors sell the cream taken off that milk onto the market, and so that they can keep a low price to the supermarkets at this time. So the milk processors are squeezed, and they are saying the only way forward for them is to drop the price to the farmers. Our figures show that this 4 pence per litre drop in effect from the 1st of August is likely to mean that many farmers are receiving less than their cost of production. And so what the farmers are looking for, obviously they're aggrieved. They're looking at incomes going down by 50%, not 5%, as say some of the other groups are moaning about it at the present time. And so what they're looking for is a share of the costs across the food chain, from the consumer, supermarket or retailer through the processor back to the farmer.
Now, it was a milk processor, Robert Wiseman Dairies, who were blockaded last night in Somerset. The dairy farmers want them to reinstate that 4 pence per litre price cut that we've been talking about. If they did, what would be the consequences for a company like Robert Wiseman Dairies if they reinstated that 4 pence now?
I think that they would have to, it would be pressure on them to go themselves back to negotiate with their retailers and on their contracts. The truth of the matter is the pressure has been a little bit the other way, so much that the supply of milk from the producer end, that's the farmers, would not be sustainable in the current situation. So it's anything that does spread the cost along the food chain must be a long-term good move, and it's the main aim is to sort that out in the longer term, not just knee-jerk reactions in the current time.
Some commentators are saying that what dairy farmers are facing is simply a consequence of modern farming, where we see prices on a regular basis go up and down. It just happens to be that they're down at the moment. That seems very harsh for those dairy farmers who say that they are now at crisis point.
Well, I think that's perfectly true. There's a general feeling in the industry that the market is not working. Farmers are locked into contracts where they have to give 12 months notice, but they can have their price altered. So there's certainly a fairer market situation would be the solution to these problems on a medium and long-term basis.
OK, Paul Ward from the Duchy College in Cornwall, thank you very much indeed for joining us.